realized I wasn't recording, so I guess you had to be here today. Let me head back to the screen share. I thought that might be the case. That's all right. Once in a while, you're allowed to forget, I guess. Anyway, John B. Watson, I think, is really, 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 really interesting. And it's because of, oh, you learned about him in your psych class. Awesome. And I want you to, yes, know his time and know his name and know what he was associated with, and that is behaviorism. And what does that mean? And we're talking about, he's holding on to this notion that behavior is not instinctive, but learned. Okay, now look at the time that he lived and make a sociological observation. Okay, he's saying, as his principal piece, right, psychological perspective that emphasizes the effects of, he's talking about rewards and punishment, saying both animals and behavior can be learned. It's not just instinctive. And of course, animals differ, and we will talk about that. But think about this. Look at, go ahead, somebody, anybody, make an observation. Why is his work interesting or important or revolutionary or not? Or what do you think? Just sort of making an observation, looking at this. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I have a question about him. Where was he from? Where did he live?
Well, I can't remember. I actually don't know. Assuming America.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question. What do you think? But for the time that he lived, doesn't matter for this question, at least. What do you think? Anybody?
I think it was probably a pretty revolutionary concept.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a majority of the world's people that work at universities and that are publishing papers, and even if this stuff is garbage, right? They are not, there's no reason during 1878 to 1958, we're not even in the civil rights movement yet that we know of, as far as making your whole thing that people are equally human, okay? So we have to understand that that is still something that people are rallying against. I mean, there's people in Congress that are very, very, very anti-Semitic, and we know this just within the last few weeks of what they have suggested of people of the Jewish faith. So, you know, this is still something that's continuing on. So for him to be saying that during this time is important, you know. So he's saying people are equally human, but they have different culturally, you know, learned patterns, right? Big to me. Human behavior is rooted in nurture, not nature. And we have to understand that, I mean, a lot of what was going on at the time was to try and prove that people of color, people from Africa, and anybody who's not of European descent are not even human. So for him to say they're not only that, they're equally human, I'm sorry, you know, it's heavy. It's a big deal at that time, certainly. Nurture matters more in shaping human behavior. We know that. Human behavior is rooted in nurture. We know that. Another way to say it might be nurture is our nature. But you've still got photographers and media companies and magazines presenting these ideas of biological links to, you know, whatever that might be. And, you know, it's kind of an example here with LeBron, the Vogue cover, as we, you know, date back and animalize and again, sort of don't give that equal status. And so my question, and this has been from a very, very early age when I was thinking about race, was, why do you think it took so long for people of European descent to recognize people from other cultures as actual people?
I think a lot of it has to do with capitalism. And like, I say that about pretty much every issue, but especially racism. Like, the like idea of like race came from white people trying to like defend them owning other people. Like they made it so that the race theory was like Black people are subservient and like are closer to animals so that they would feel better about using them for their own gain.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to sleep at night, Ted Cruz. Sorry, couldn't help that one. But really, honestly, I mean, you do have to sleep at night. And if you're going to own people and treat them awful and harm them and use their capital for gain, you got to sleep at night. Those, I think you are exactly right. And so these people used educators, and they used college platforms, and they used newspapers and media, and to really cement this idea, so that, you know, white America and the ruling class, you know, because race is an idea created in Europe, you know, like it's not just something that, oh, it's always, no, it's the notion of it, how the construct works, and certainly the economics of it. And when we talk about any of these inequalities, you know, I teach an environmental sociology class, and we always come back to that dollar sign. Like that dollar sign ends up on our board when we're talking and discussing and processing this, a lot like it does about, you know, these types of issues. Good. Why else? Why do you think it took so long for people of European descent to recognize people of other cultures as actual people? I mean, maybe that's just the best way that we can break it down. They've got to feel okay. They got to sleep at night. They've got to justify it. And furthermore, they're making a lot of money off it. There we go. I mean, you still have politicians and people that like, or at least try to argue the futile point that the Civil War was about states' rights. It was not about states' rights. That's a dominant culture way to spin what it was really about. Again, it's about free labor and capital and slavery, and some people being just this much better than other people. Because as long as you can, and that's really kind of how the history of this United States is broken down. The simple history of the United States is rich people of European descent telling poor people of European descent that they are slightly better and can own slightly more and are slightly more human than people who are brown. That's it. And it's over and it's over and it's over. And it's to this day that it's still impacting these people. Now, the thing of it is that we know it's false, and that these people down here, those people that are telling that lie are like 3 or 4 or 5%, right, of the total number of people. So these people down here really need to understand, instead of, I'm going to take advantage of this position and say that white supremacy exists or try and justify that racial superiority piece, you should all look that you're in the same boat, right? I mean, if you want change, you could do that with 95% of the population. But of course, that idea that the wealthy or the rich or those in power like me more than those people. I mean, I think one of the best ways to see white privilege was the Capitol riots. You know, the BML movements were found out to be over 95% peaceful this summer, and yet they were tear gassed and they were rubber bulleted and they were arrested and they were beaten and they were taken away in unmarked vans. And we're now finding out today in the news that at least 6 Capitol police officers have been removed because they are now find out that these folks have been letting them in. They weren't beaten. They weren't tear gassed. There was no really even effort to stop them. That's about as easy of an explanation of white privilege as we could ever lay out. A very simple, very understandable piece, which, I mean, understandable in that the mechanisms are there, not in that I actually understand that, you know, that approach. All right, good. Let me share this here again. So if we're still suffering from those repercussions, it's important. Wow. You do not need to read this, but I will, and you do not need to write this down. But let me say this. Here's a quote from Watson. Give me a dozen healthy infants, well-formed in my own specified world to bring them up, and I'll guarantee to take anyone at random and train him to become any type of specialist I might select. Doctor, lawyer, artist, merchant, chief, and yes, even beggarman and thief, regardless of talents, pensions, tendencies, abilities, vocations, and race of his ancestors. And of course, at this time, he's, you know, pronouns are all going to be his. I am going beyond my facts, and I admit it, but so have the advocates of the contrary, and they've been doing it for many thousands of years. So John B. Watson is saying these other people here have no proof that these people aren't subhuman, yet they're willing to say that. So I'm willing to say this. If you train people and treat them in a human way, they're equal is human. I can only hope that John B. Watson was infuriating to racists. I bet you won't share this because you're embarrassed to have Jesus on your wall. Now, for those of you that follow Star Wars, you know that I'm messing with everybody. I'm not even sure why this is in my lecture, except I feel like it has to do with race and our racialized images of Christ, which is a really important thing once we get to the race chapter to talk about. If you have not only made people feel less human, then you will also get to a step where we are, and we have been for decades, where young children who are people of color know that they are actually less close to God than racialized white images, of Jesus from maybe Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, who would not look like Jesus from Bethlehem in the Middle East, clearly. So we'll talk about that, though. Again, we're talking about some big deal, or some at least big concepts here in regards to race and inequality, and socialization, as people internalize these roles throughout their lives. And that can be gender, and that can be age, and that can be nationality, and that can be all these things that we talk about race all semester long. So actually, I'm going to stop sharing on that note, because I want to get into the self, and I want to do all that on Monday. It's a big lecture. It's a fun lecture. I would like for people to have their phones with them and ready on Monday. I know, when would I ever say that? But I have a really excellent and exciting way for us to look at the I in the me, and all the stuff that we're looking at. We're looking at personality construction and things like that. All right, any questions before you do your thing and I do mine? I should mention, and I will, I guess, when I upload this, the first half of class I didn't press record for, so if you're just seeing this, maybe you'll have to refer to one of my lectures that maybe is not as exciting as the live lectures, but they are edited in a really awesome way by my son Zion, with some elevator music and all sorts of stuff. I shouldn't show you these snow people that he's my artist 13-year-old. I shouldn't show you the snow people he made in our farm stand. They're like on the ground with icicles sticking in them, and then he went out and got red paint and a big thing of it. I'll show you a picture. Just, it's good sociology, because he's a weirdo, and I wonder what my neighbors think, really. Let me see if I can find it. This is before my truck lost a wheel this morning, so hold on. You don't have to stick around if you don't want to see this. This is just for fun. All right. Okay. Yep. So here, now, again, these are graphic images of snow people. Okay, so. I mean, that's so, isn't that, I think it's awful, but at the same time, that's what's in like our farm stand. You have to understand, there's only like 2 houses on my street. So everybody that goes down around the corner, they must just be like, but I do believe I took a can of my dad's spray paint to do something similar, like when I did like a life-size Jabba the Hutt or something like that. And anyway, snow sculptures and paint. Okay, so that's it. Any questions? I'll leave you with that very strange snow image. All right, have a great weekend. Be good people, do good things, get on top of that documentary or the other classes that you have. If we're having a little like lull right now before another round of papers and another chapter and another, all that business. Be good people and do good things. Peace. Thanks, everybody. You're awesome. Take care.
Thank you.
Yep.